was that?
Well, it was long.
It was long.
Yeah.
It was wet.
Very wet. We had I think the worst weather ever. The first day was the worst day. I've done this 29 times, this pilgrimage from Paris to Chartres.
Yeah, freak hailstorm.
Hail.
The works.
Yes, we had hail, so God was giving us a little extra grace, I think.
How are your feet? They're coming up?
Well, you kind of get used to the feet. It's the aging process, I think.
Feet, the knees, the hips.
Yeah, I'm not a young man anymore,
and
and you sort of feel like you're going to fall apart. But no, it was great. I mean, it really was, especially after Traditionis Custodes, the show up, the turnout that they had this time. Biggest ever, 18,000. That's just walkers, or many more people that were joining remotely, throughout the thing.
Right.
So.
And the average age I heard was pretty young.
They haven't calculated it exactly, but 20 years old, maybe 22, somewhere in there. I guess they're going to figure that out. But yeah, it's a it's a pretty strong youth movement, and it's kind of cute because the official T-shirt of Notre Dame Chrétienne, the organization that does this, the Guardians of Tradition. To see all these young people using the Guardians of Tradition on the back of their.
That was a great slogan.
Yeah, that was pretty
I'd like
fantastic.
To steal that, in fact.
Yeah, it was really good.
Good.
Yeah, so it was good. The weather was bad. The statement was fantastic. And I think after COVID, I mean, lots of us didn't think this was going to happen maybe for a long, long time. So God is good. Got to have it again. Threw it together at the last moment. But, it was bigger than ever. I think that for people back home, man, don't be discouraged. Don't give up. I mean, to have that many young people, young families come out in really terrible weather and just make this massive, beautiful, joyful, happy statement for tradition. It's as hardcore, counter-revolutionary as you can get, but because of the nature of pilgrimage itself, the event, you become like a little child again.
Yeah.
You really do. You share water bottles, and you're covered in mud, and you're sleeping on the ground, and there's nothing about it that could be offensive. So even like modernist, progressive bishops and priests in France, they look at this like, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
Nearly 20,000 beautiful young people that are just on fire for the Catholic faith. It's fun.
I heard that the Bishop of Chartres, who's not necessarily pro-tradition, had to admit that this was a very unifying event, which is interesting.
We're going to have that in the documentary, that
Right.
we're able to that we'll put out in the next month or so. That he said it's a very beautiful thing to see, and I think that is the genius of this organization. They don't compromise. There's no false compromise, but neither is there sort of an in your face. We're traditionalists. We're going to take you down. I mean, they really negotiate. They work hard, and they don't back down at all on tradition.
Very clever.
And so even priests and bishops who are not necessarily disposed to it, well, what are you going to do?
You almost can't help them.
What are you going to do with this? The press is here, the media is here, there are planes going overhead with media filming this incredible
drones,
5-mile long column.
Yeah.
And as I say, after COVID, I think there was a different spirit this time because people now, you don't have to convince them that without Christ, without tradition, without Christianity, bad things are going to happen. That used to be the thing that we were doing. Like, wait a minute, where's Christianity going? It's going to be bad. And everybody says, yeah, what do you know? It's progress. We're evolving. We're getting better.
How about something as basic as freedom?
Exactly.
Right.
We did a lot of shows on what's happening in Shanghai, for example. People literally locked in their homes. What happened in New York? What's happening to our poor friends in Australia? There was no Canadian chapter this year because the Canadians are not allowed to leave the country. It's not difficult to show people what has to happen. We have to get back to the one primary thing that stood in the way of this globalist takeover of the planet now. This isn't just theology, old mass versus new. This is about freedom, like you say. It's about freedom. It's about your civil liberties are being taken away because of the civilizing influence of Christianity down through the centuries, because of the law and order of Christ, without which there's nothing but chaos. So we saw so many people who were, just eager and receptive to this pilgrimage because they've lived through hell on earth. And if Christianity does not assert itself again in the state, not just for the personal lives, it's over. So we come to this building every year, and it gets stronger every year, and it has to be Chartres. It has to be Notre Dame de Chartres.
Why does it have to be Chartres?
That's a great question, and I have my own personal reasons. I think everybody has their personal reason for why it's so important to come here to Chartres. But I think primarily it's because there's a sense that Our Lady's intercession is needed now more than ever before. And as you know, this entire magnificent structure is one massive reliquary for Our Lady's veil, which is here. And I think there's this sense, just like as in the old days when the Crusaders would go off to crusade, they would make a pilgrimage first to Chartres as well, and they would touch their tunics to the relic, to the veil, begging her intercession in really terrible, terrible times. Pilgrims have been doing it ever since. We had the opportunity to do it ourselves. And I think that the Marian aspect of all this, and sometimes it's frustrating. People say, well, Catholics, they worship Mary. And there's so many black legends that are very quickly and very easily dispelled by coming to places like Notre Dame de Chartres. Nobody's worshiping Our Lady. That's not the point. The point has always been Christ and only Christ. He's the only way. Only through the Father. Only can we be saved through Christianity, with following Christ. But there are all these other ways of finding Christ, that the humanity of Christ can be discerned, can be appreciated. We can love him even more by learning to love and know something about those who served him best. And obviously the Mother of God, if you want to become friends with someone, you don't want to mistreat his mother or ignore his mother or whatever. So this is not difficult. Any child can understand this. And this is so ancient. You can see it everywhere in this building, this idea of the cult of Mary being a vehicle by which we as humans can relate to another human, namely Our Lady, in drawing closer to Christ and then finishing the pilgrimage of life, which is the salvation of our souls. And scripturally, biblically, this building is also, it's a Bible. It is. It's really funny when you start poking around a little bit. People say that Catholics, we don't know our Bible and all this stuff. And you guys are clueless on the Bible. All you need is Scripture. Well, I would say to my Protestant friends, if you really believe that, come to Chartres. If you want to know why you still have a Bible, come to Chartres. Come and look at this building. This building is literally the Bible in stone and glass. So the people of the Middle Ages, they weren't able to read. There was no such thing as a Bible. There's a printed Bible for them. There wasn't even paper. So what did they do? They came here, and the church, Holy Mother Church, has set up this gorgeous, this is just one of the many cathedrals that do this, gorgeous catechism class, a gorgeous Bible that they can study. So we may feel very superior now, because we know how to read and all that, but we're clueless about so many things, including theology. The peasants of the Middle Ages who couldn't read paper, couldn't read a book, they knew how to read this place. And when we come here, we have to find help. We have to find priests and people who understand what's happened, what this building is all about, so that we can read it. You literally read this cathedral like Chartres. So right now, for example, so right now we're standing on the north porch of the cathedral. I'll just pick right here. This archway, for example. If you know something about creation, and if you lived in the 15th century, you would have been very grateful for that arch, which is the teaching, the catechetical exegesis study of creation. Adam and Eve, the fall of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are very much at the top. And you go down the other side, and there's the fall of Adam and Eve. So you learned about creation just from the building in which you were worshiping God. There's this beautiful old Adam and new Adam theme throughout this, Christ being the new Adam. So you have the Old Testament and the New Testament everywhere, and it's in perfect complementarity everywhere you look. So up here you have, for example, Melchizedek is on the far end over there. You have Isaac in the middle, and Abraham. You have Moses. You have King David on the end holding the spear, the instrument of death, the instruments of death for Christ. In the middle here, you have St. Anne holding the Blessed Mother as a baby. So those of you who think there's something very odd about, venerating Our Lady, well, what do you do with this? Then you start moving into the New Testament over here. On the far end, you got St. John the Baptist right here. You have St. Peter on the end. You can see the keys. And the way they describe it is they say that at Chartres, you realize that the Old Testament is the New Testament behind a veil. And the New Testament is the Old Testament unveiled. So anyone who wants to know anything about Christianity, come to these places. Come to a place like this cathedral to understand how it was preserved. And once you realize that, how can you possibly say the Catholic Church is a problem? We didn't know enough about the Bible. We made sure, the Catholic, and by we, I mean Christianity, the historical Christians, Catholic Church, made sure that all these beautiful revelation, the scriptures, the doctrines of the church were preserved. Not only through the stone, which you're seeing all around us right now, not only through the stone, but also through the architecture. It's cruciform, of course, of the whole building, and through the glass, the stained glass that tells the entire history of salvation, the biblical history of salvation from Adam to the Apocalypse. any Christian worth his salt needs to understand what this building is all about. That's why we come here. And then you say, well, what was the other purpose for this other than pointing? You can see Chartres from 100 miles away, two dramatic spires pointing towards God. Everything about this building points towards God. And you say, well, what was the other purpose for this? Obviously, it was to preserve the veil, the sacred relic of Christendom, Our Lady's veil, which wrapped Christ when he was born and which covered his nakedness when he was on the cross. That veil is here. So that's why it became such an important part of pilgrimage. But what else is here? The other thing that this building was made for was the traditional Latin Mass. And that, of course, is what this pilgrimage is all about, restoring the two pillars of Christianity, tradition and Scripture.
I did notice something about St. Anne. She's holding a headless baby Mary. So do you know what happened with that?
Yeah, okay, so that's a great example of what this pilgrimage to Chartres hopes to also accomplish eventually. Is because that's a result of, people oftentimes think that's Our Lady. It's not. It's St. Anne. It's the mother of Mary. And the head of Mary was knocked off by anti-Catholic, anti-Mary, obviously, anti-Christ, revolutionary mobs, say the BLM movement or the Antifa movement of the 18th century, 1789, the revolution in France. So if you walk around the perimeter of this building, you'll see the efforts that were made by that same revolutionary mob, which has now become the globalists, whether we like it or not, the same Christophobic, anti-Catholic, anti-Mary globalists, anti-life now globalists, smashing these statues, breaking the head of Our Lady off. Up in here you can see where arms are missing from the apostles and the saints, just smashing the heck out of this place, right? And that's terrible. And that was what the Enlightenment did. The pro-science reason. This became a temple of reason. So what did they do? They destroyed all the things to do with Christ, the Blessed Mother of the Saints. But the tragic irony of it is, from 1965 moving on, guess what happened? They decided we Catholics decided we were going to do that to ourselves. So we went in with bulldozers. We went in with the hammers, and we started smashing the altars, smashing the statues, removing the statues entirely. Any of those reminders. Yeah. Self-inflicted, in other words, destroying ourselves, which is how we got here today. And in Chartres, in this cathedral, you understand why it was always called Holy Mother Church. Like even as an adult, you might be at Mass, you get a little distracted, and you might, your mind drifts and you start looking out the window. That's anticipated by Mother Church in a building like this, and all of these stained glass windows, wherever you look, even a child looking out the window is learning something about the faith. And that's, I think, the thing that really comes home to you. This is the foundation of everything that we believe, represents the foundation of everything that we believe, and it was intentionally destroyed, just like the revolutionary mobs of 1789 intentionally destroyed these places, tried to destroy the veil, made them temples of reason, put naked prostitutes on the altar. Many of the same attitudes that we see today were happening then. So the war is the same. The pilgrimage to Chartres is basically just a continuation of the Vendée. It's a continuation of the Catholic resistance to this enlightened anti-God, anti-Christ movement that today, I'm sorry, it is tearing the hell out of the world. It's destroying the world, taking away civil liberties and freedoms and everything else in the process. So first they came after the souls. Now they're coming after, then they started going after the body, killing life, becoming a culture of death. And now they're coming after our countries. So what the Chartres pilgrimage says is, how long do you want to put up with this? How long are you going to let them dictate to us, the things that make us who we are, the things about God, the things about our faith? You're going to be embarrassed forever? You're going to continue to just downplay it all and be like a little Sunday morning guy and never be a true Catholic? There's a militancy that came out this year in this pilgrimage, I think more than ever, because now we know what's coming. We know what they have in store for us. We need to stand up, make a commitment to save ourselves, unite the clans, and go to war for Christ, like any crusader, the Crusaders did, all the holy wars did in the past. Go to war for it. And so, as I say, there's an incredible joy about this pilgrimage, but it's not missed on anyone that there's also a militancy. We're going to die. We are going to die as a civilization, as a people, as individuals. They are going to exterminate us if we don't smarten up, wisen up, reclaim what is ours, and in the process, oh, by the way, save our souls, which is the point of all this anyway.
Do you think, though, that that's only a future that may happen or a future that will happen?
I think there's only two possibilities. It's either the end of the world, which it could be. I personally don't think that it is. Or there's going to be a resurgence of Christianity, a resurgence of Catholicism. And especially here in France, where this is the eldest daughter of the church, and there's so many reasons to believe that ultimately this counter-revolution will be led from France. And then when you see what's happened, I mean, on the pilgrimage especially, when you see the resurgence that's already happening with so many young people, young families, and I think back to the 1970s for myself, where we were attending the Latin Mass in the basements of our homes and, in Howard Johnson hotels or whatever. Nobody ever thought, humanly speaking, that we would lived long enough to see any sort of a triumph or a resurgence of traditionalism. But we just walked 3 days with nearly 20,000 Catholics from all over the world who are proof that it's not going away. Mm-hmm. This is not, it's more powerful. I mean, people say, they say of me, you seem optimistic. And I say, yeah, but not like in even the supernatural, hopeful sense. I don't know how you ignore what's happening. The future right now for the church in France and the United States is traditional Catholicism. There's no doubt about that. The church in France is dying. Yeah. The future of the world, the preservation of sanity and law and order in the world, is dependent upon Christ the King. This pilgrimage was all about the proclamation of Christ the King. In the Vatican right now, you have a revolution. It is chock full of modernists, progressives, folks who I don't even know what they believe anymore. So you would think, in the age of reason that we're now living in, the Vatican would have no concern for the 20,000 young people that we just walked from Paris to Chartres. The Vatican is terrified of this pilgrimage. The Vatican is terrified of the Latin Mass. Mm-hmm. They're trying to shut it down. Mm-hmm. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, why would that be? Unless they know also that the future is tradition. That's and that they are dying, and that tradition, and this has nothing to do with us. This is like, we're so much better. This just has to do with the faith itself. The faith that built Christendom will rebuild Christendom. And I know, I'm absolutely, it's a fact. I just look around going, yep, you're not going to shut that down. I mean, these pilgrimages, the traditional mass movement in general throughout the whole world, it is full of life. It is a culture of life at every level. That's going to live, and the culture of death is dying.